No, tell Allah.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. So as we grow up into society, whether being in our teens or in our 50s, it's important for us to understand and obtain knowledge and gain knowledge. And it's also important for us to teach knowledge because it's always a learning and teaching experience for oneself. And so when you're teaching or when starting lectures or anything, it's always important to start with pure intentions and start off with intentions that are in the right mindset. And so when you teach, it's important for you to act upon what you're teaching before you start actually conveying a message. And so you start your transformation first and foremost with oneself. And after you feel like it's to the best of its capability, you go on to your family and your close friends. And after that goes on, you go on to community, which is a much larger picture. And then once you feel like your community is more balanced or your community is growing, you can start off and branch up into other communities, and it becomes one unity center, if you look at it in that way. And so I stated before of how a person should be teaching and learning at the same time, similar to stagnant water. And we know that it's prohibited for us to make wudu inside of stagnant water. And so when water is flowing, it becomes pure, similar to how knowledge flows, it becomes pure. And when it moves from one person to another person, it turns into this multiplier effect. And basically what a multiplier effect is that instead of having one person teach 10,000 people, you have one person teaching a smaller group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and each of those people individually teach 5 other people, and it goes on and on and on. So there becomes this much larger crowd of interested people rather than one speaker talking to 10,000 people and only 200 of them are interested. It's better to have a smaller amount of interested people. It's better for quality over quantity. And so when we usually learn things in our Sunday schools, in our Quran schools, and our Hifz schools, and our weekend schools, we're usually taught to just read and not understand and not explore certain things. And so we tend to look at things with a black and white cast over our eyes. And there are 2 revelations created: the Quran and the starry skies above, the grass beneath us, the sunrise, the sunset, the moon, the water. And so a lot of the times it's destined for us to take in all of Allah's creations. We should not only just believe and read it once a month, once a year, during Ramadan, but instead we should try to interpret and understand everything around us and explore everything around us, because it's known that Allah is indicated in every verse, every ayah, every sign, similar to how Allah is indicated in every creation. You may not see Him visually, but you feel the presence. And so we all know the story of Umar radiallahu anhu, how he was brought into Islam. The Quran was opened up to him rather than him opening up the Quran. So it's important for us to try to, although we may open up the Quran, we should try to have the Quran open up to us as well. And so that brings me to the first ayah of Surah Al-Asr, Surah Al-Asr. And so when we're reading at our schools and even regularly, we tend to just look over the Arabic and not really look into the meaning. And the point of this lecture today is it's for me to try to teach what I learned at the retreat to the best of my capability. And I start off with Wal Asr. What is that usually roughly translated as in all of our translation books?
Like a time.
Yeah, by the time. By the token of time. But in actuality, there are a couple of words that defines the word time. There is as, that we roughly translate as time. Mm-hmm. There is dhahr, which is time that goes forward and backwards. There is zaman, which is extended time. There is waqt, which is measured time. There is lahda, which is the moment in itself. There is sa'a, any period of time. And yom, any period that is long or short. But the difference between this word and all the others is that the root word of wal asr or al asr is I'asara. And what words come to mind when this is here? There is asid. And what is asid?
Juice.
And what is juice usually made of? Made of squeezed vegetables and fruits. And the root word asara must mean squeeze. So wal asr is literally Allah swearing by the time that squeezes us. And another word that comes from this root word is i'sad. And i'sad means
Tornado.
And what happens during in tornadoes? Clouds are being squeezed. So it's similar to how we're being squeezed into time. So when Allah swears on something, specifically time, Allah is always telling the truth. So when something's being sweared upon, you know it's a severe matter. And so sometimes we don't think of time as an actual creation of Allah. Similar to how we don't really think that wind is a creation of Allah. We don't see it exactly. We see its effect on the branches, similar to how we see the effect of time on us. So in order for time to have less of an effect on us, we should try to get closer to the One, the Almighty. And we know that Allah is timeless, meaning that Allah is outside of time. And two words that come to mind when this is mentioned is the word civilizations and present. Civilization, the Arabic word is hadara. And what is present in Arabic? Hadir. And hadir. They have the same triliteral root. That's kind of crazy because you think of civilizations and present not being the same thing, when in actuality, Battle of Badr and Battle of Uhud is happening right now in the beholder's eyes. And so, we don't belong in the present or in the future in the beholding eye of Allah, on the sight of Allah. And so a true believer, a true mu'min, measures his or her life in the amount of breaths he or she takes. Not in the minutes and the seconds and the hours we have. We're literally being locked inside of a clock, as one friend would say. And so we don't tend to look at time as of anything with worth or with value, when in actuality great people value their time and were protective of their time. Like Imam Josi, and the story of Imam Josi. And the story of Imam Josi is on his deathbed. His students asked him, "What is something you've regretted? What is something you've regretted throughout your lifetime?" And this is paraphrased. And he said the amount of time he spent eating. And we think of that as something being wacky and kind of weird, but in actuality, his students would say that he would only eat bread and water. And to speed up the process, he would dip his bread in the water. And so you think time is killing you, but in actuality, you think you're killing time, but time is actually killing you. That's the quote. And so the ayah that comes after this, which is revealed right after this, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, is roughly translated as, verily mankind, or indeed mankind is in loss. But An-Nas translates mankind, not Al-Insan. Insan is a singular word. And so the ayah is accurately translated as verily, or indeed, a human being is in loss. Meaning that even when you are alone, even when you're in a group, you are in loss, because there's an emptiness of God consciousness. There's no thought of God brought into the picture. And so Allah is emphasizing on this ayah and trying to wake us up. Because what this ayah truly shows is great loss for those who rejected Allah's revelations, not just the Quran, but the skies above and the seas around us. After it literally comes through, things come through one ear and out the other. And for those who accepted it, but failed to practice it wholeheartedly. And so, in the ayah, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, fi is used as a prepositional phrase, and it's connected to loss, meaning that it's much more stronger. It's showing complete loss. And the word fi, the letter fi, literally has its own meaning, and it means closing up or containment. So even when you're put into the wrong groups and in the wrong crowds of friends, there's an emptiness. And this ayah is basically saying that even when you're in a group, you are in loss. And so the next ayah is revealed, and the last final ayah, is إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And what this is translated as is except for those who have believed and done righteous deeds and advised each other to truth and advised each other to patience. So the people who enjoin good and forbid evil with those people, with those persons who feel like even when they're alone, they're in a group because they're looking at life as a glass half full rather than a glass half empty. And so they're put into the right surroundings. So when Allah is put into the picture, and when Allah is put into every picture, it is almost inseparable for you to break that boundary. So believers that serve and benefit for themselves and benefit for others. And in the ayah, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, Amanu's triliteral root word is similar to iman. And three things that come to mind when thinking of this ayah is the heart, mind, and soul. Heart, body, and soul. Heart, mind, and body. And the words Iman, Islam, and Ihsan come up. Iman is to make something safe. To make something safe, break all connections that are wrong. Ihsan is to make something beautiful. Worship Allah as if you behold Him, not just see Him. Because we necessarily, as Muslims, don't believe in visually seeing our Creator. We behold Him. And the last one, Islam, is to submit oneself to Allah wholeheartedly, completely. That's kind of like the body part of the whole story. And so, if you notice, all three of these words start with a kasra. And kasra literally means to what? To break. And so, Iman, Ihsan, Islam. You're literally breaking your ego, breaking all the pride you have for yourself. And we see it in our scholars, male and female. There's this black and white cast of ego and pride in front of their faces, and the only way they can break that is to better their iman and their ihsan and their Islam. And to conclude this ayah, those who believe and come to unity and do service and counsel one another allows patience in their homes and in their own terms, meaning that even their in-home surroundings and their outdoor surroundings are filled with righteous things. Every person who does these things to the best of their capability, they will have a place to cherish, inshallah.
Why is that?